Okay, hey everybody, it is another week for Global, and as per this week, we are splitting up the Global and JP videos because reasons. So, I actually think I'm recording this first, but I do believe that this video will be going second. So there you go. I mean, because Globalers, you got like still you got a little bit of time before this happens. Anyway, Final Fantasy VI is coming to Global this week in a collaboration return. What's it called? What do they call this? A reissue event is what we're looking at here. And with that, looks like they did a Wotv's update number 27 video. Looks like we're in classification of jobs. A reissue of Final Fantasy VI stuff, and last but certainly not least is Kefka and the new VC. Let's dig right into it from a JP perspective, because I mean, at this point, you guys have two things that are really kind of changing what you guys might be running. Sylvie as well as Hayo. And both of those two characters, I think that, like, they didn't exist on JP for the last few months. So what of course, I'm a JP player only. I don't play Global. So I can only offer my perspective as to how these units have been in the last few months. And Kefka, we'll start with the newest unit and then roll back to the old units. Kefka is a absolutely decent unit in a lot of the same ways that Mont is. One of the initial groupings that looked to be really successful was Roy Mustang, Kefka, and last but not least, Swimsuit Helena. And that team, while initially looking pretty good, has pretty much faded. She really isn't a thing. Mono-elemental teams are still pretty damn dominant in Arena, and it's pretty clear that, at least with the amount of Earth power that existed on JP, that a Thunder Elemental character wasn't really looking super promising in most matchups. Not to say that it's completely bad, but it wasn't looking to the degree of certainty that a lot of high-end guilds were. Also, my hair feels very lopsided, so apologies for that. Myself, really. But Kefka is a really solid unit and still sees a lot of use on JP. It's just that nowadays he's kind of intermingled, at least from the last couple weeks I've seen. He's very intermingled with UR Mont, and not only UR Mont, he's also very used a lot of the time with Hayo or just Rain or a bunch of different fire elemental characters, but that's essentially where he seems to be mostly being. And it does make sense, because on JP it was hard to predict that Roy Mustang was going to have such a synergistic character coming in the future, and that it would require just so much limited time stuff. And that's the thing. Maybe Globalers will find more success with this, and definitely with a renewed interest in the fire element with certain characters. Thing is that Kefka does bring something to the table regardless of what team he's on, because he can cause status effects that are pretty nasty and debuffs and whatnot. Now, personally, I've been farming these teams for the last little bit, for the last 2 weeks, as a matter of fact, since Ferris and water elemental characters were on bonus. And I lost a few times to comps with Mont in it, some with Kefka, some without. And the big thing is still Mont's Berserk status effect, which can ruin some days for sure, but not necessarily all the way. And of course, fire evasion, while I still think it's a little bit overrated, it does tend to sometimes just be a coin flip type of win situation. And so that's the thing. The fire magic team is both alive and dead. It's Schrodinger's, because like water becomes pretty darn powerful. Not necessarily the most powerful element, but a real contender with strong characters like Paris into the future. And yeah, with Hayo as well as Mont and Rain, and a lot of good upgrades in Fire that don't really matchup with characters like Setia, and like there's both good stuff going on in the fire element and stuff that's not. I mean, I think that the thing here to say is that Kefka did not end up being like Sephiroth, and definitely did not end up being like King Bradley in the sense that they were really over the top 100 tier characters. Like to the point where collaboration 100s seemed like they were going to be really big meta definers. Both Kefka and Ferris have seemed more tame than when those two came out. And it does make a little bit sense that maybe the power creep has been scaled back since Anniversary. But overall, I think that Kefka, for people who get him and people into the fire element, even if you didn't go the Roy route, I think you can still be pretty happy with this character, which sounds a little bit middling, but that's just because, you know, all of these characters' mileage will vary as we potentially get into some exclusive global summer units, or maybe some new something different that global has cooking up in the future. But fire and thunder are both, like, at least right now, seem to be still trending more towards physical, and maybe leaving a little bit of the magic behind, but not necessarily. So yeah, I think that this could be, but he's not, like, more for people who love the character and people who are fire elemental aficionados, or maybe mage aficionados. That's really where this character is. So done talking about Kefka. That took about 6 minutes. Let's breeze through these other ones. Celeste, for water people, there's really nothing to complain about here. Celeste's 140 is absolutely amazing. I'll talk about it more in a second. Locke is pretty damn dead on JP, and unless his enhancements are completely different on global to really refocus him towards being absolutely broken and incredibly annoying in evasion, just with the omnipresence of dark on JP, I do not recommend this character at all, unless you already have him maxed and you're looking for more FF6 orbs for one of the other characters. That's basically it. And the fact that I think you get a free copy of him anyway again. But I do not like Locke. I do not overly recommend him. Sylvie might make a difference, but with the way that Future is right now based on JP, Light with Bartz and Engelbert, or Bartz and Engelbert, or Warrior of Light in place of Engelbert in combination with Wing Stern, is just absolutely super solid right now, and definitely a very powerful team, and very, very strong. Excuse me, woo, I hiccuped right in the middle of that. At least I haven't coughed yet. Really trying not to cough, because I still have a really bad cough. So anyway, Locke is dead as a doornail as far as I'm concerned. If you want his equipment for building potential future evasion characters, that might come around, but I do not recommend him at all. Sorry for Locke fans out there. Terra also just never really reappeared on JP. She is got some pretty good upgrades. I think I think they were away, and some of them, it'll be interesting because I think that some of JP's upgrades were like what Global originally got to make Terra better, and it's still not really there. Like, if you just want a fire mage, just go Kefka. Again, if you're fans of any of these characters, that will of course always persuade people to upgrade characters whether they are meta or not. Hell, that's why I have Lightning into 140 right now. But with that being said, I'm going to circle all the way back to Celeste, who I think is just the best out of the Final Fantasy 16 characters. At 16, ooh, Final Fantasy 6, less than a month. Anyway, Final Fantasy 6 best is Celeste, is still in my opinion, because she absolutely can just still shut down a mass amount of mage comps. She's still a really defensive character, and if you're looking to combine Celeste, she just fits into so many different water and potentially even some ice teams, since there's more crossover now with Dark Shiva. Celeste kind of can wedge in there a little bit more. But yeah, if I was to put a specific tier rank, because what is it? The Power of the Warring Triad, which is for ninja blades, swords, and gloves, and staffs. That VC is basically exactly face up as to who it is for, like glove-based jobs, basically, yeah. Talking about, though, my overall poll recommendation for Final Fantasy VI Returning, I really do think that most of it is pretty passable on a fair amount of stuff. We'll see if Global tends to give a few more upgrades that might change the balance, but you know, Celeste is still my highest because I still think out of all of them, she has the most powerful abilities and the best upgrades. So there it is. There it is. As for second place, it's Kefka because he's a newer unit. I think the status effects just work better than Terra's, just trying to DPS down people. But I do think Fire and Thunder seem to both be moving way more towards physical recently. And bottom tier, obviously, like Terra/Tina is a little bit higher, but like actually I'd say fairly, decently close to Kefka. If you don't have the resources to pull Kefka, you just want a fire mage to go with Rain. My last recommendation, or my last place recommendation, is Locke. The meta has just shifted so much from Light, and even if Sylvie is just absolutely insane, as some globalers have told me, or just really good, whatever. I think that the future with like combination with Bart's and just taking a peek into Engelbert potentially in the meantime as a defensive option if you don't have Warrior of Light, and then just Wing Stern, that's kind of the meal ticket right now for non-limited light-based teams. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it helped you decide whether or not Final Fantasy VI is really worth spending resources. But the last thing I'll say really quickly is that just a fond remember that JP is having a Pixel Remaster collaboration again during the 3.5 anniversary. I assume Global will have something very similar. And that means that while like the only people who really potentially need to put some resources down on this time is Kefka users, and everyone else can potentially wait, see what's more in JP's future, and then upgrade FF6 characters if you're not incredibly motivated and you kind of want to wait and just hold back a little bit and see how meta shifts and change and what new is coming. Then yeah, Final Fantasy VI will return, at least high probability of the FF6. The Wotv 3.5 anniversary. There we go. So thanks so much for watching. See you next time.